success.
I guess I don't know. Classes. That look okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Fine.
Marriage distance wise, I think the camera's about the same.
Well, she moved it back and then she moved it forward and then, so I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Um,
So you can put 3 red dots on the carpet.
Yep.
This carpet's getting changed.
But I hear,
Say that again?
I said this carpet's getting changed at some point in the near future.
I think
The
so.
carpet and stuff on the hallway is supposed to get changed. too.
Both of them, yeah. I voted against it for like 3 years and now the ripples over by the door. Tripping people, so.
Yes, that's
Like, all right, we'll spend some money.
where we have it.
whenever you're ready, Carl.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm just gonna be over here
Okay,
in English. Yeah. So go ahead.
all right, let's call the meeting to order. See, Mark Erman and Joe Shinada are both excused. First item on the agenda, consideration of the meeting minutes from October 12th, 2022. Anyone have any questions?
I had 2 things. Line 4, 5, 6. The first word there should be formerly, FORMERLY. And then line 481. I either made the motion or seconded it, but I didn't do both.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I know Joe made some motions that night.
Yeah, Joe seconded it.
I
I'll just say.
Joe seconded it. All in favor? appointing Joe to be the second. Sorry, that was it, 2 easy ones.
All right, does anyone have anything else?
No, me.
All right, is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept as amended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, you want to abstain, all right, that's carries. All right, next item. Continuing another business. Stormwater management, review of detention ponds at the Pines and Forest Ridge has approved the site plan review approval. Either Carol or Jake, can you give us an update as to what's going on? Last meeting, we discussed sending a cease and desist letter.
Okay, so I think OJ, was present at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, but I have an update from Ray.
Okay, good.
So I don't know which one you want first, but. Hi Carol, here's a quick update on the subject property. Based on the ongoing site inspections completed by town staff and KB Partners, the developer has been issued a punch list to address deficiencies regarding the project's erosion and sediment control plan. Developer is currently working through that punch list. The most recent site visit was completed by Ryan Fairbrother on October 26th. Deficiencies remain and additional follow-up is required to ensure all items are properly addressed. Based on as-built information provided by the developer's consultant, which I assume is Horizon, was noted that the detention ponds as constructed failed to fully comply with the town's stormwater management ordinance. Specifically, revisions are required to achieve design intent for the forebay embankment and spillway elevations and capacity of the detention pond. The developer's consultant has made recommendations to remedy the outstanding issues and has submitted a drainage analysis to confirm the design intent can be achieved once those recommendations are implemented. The drainage analysis is currently under review. Please call with any questions.
Okay, and what's the date of that?
Pardon?
What's the date of that email?
5:14 this evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Paul?
Yeah, I still think we should suspend a permit until such time as it's done. This thing's been going on 8 years. And so, I mean, and I also think that we should hire a third-party review to make sure that it's gonna meet the requirements of the original approval. I'm not sure we were best served by people that were reviewing it, companies that were reviewing it. And I think we need to make sure that this is done the right way.
Steve, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Didn't we do that last week? We didn't vote on it?
Well, we discussed
We
it.
did, but the board of selectmen are the enforcement
Oh, that's
agency, and they
right.
decided to not do that. Because it was being looked into, and for me, 8 years doesn't deserve it just looking into it. It deserves more than that.
Okay. So I guess,
Okay, I get it, man.
so I guess, my concern is that, we're gonna run out of runway, they're gonna complete the project, and then we won't have any more leverage. We have a bond.
Depends on what the deficiencies are, if the bond's sufficient enough to correct it. Don't know what the deficiencies are, because I didn't really get any detail of what it is. I mean, why can't we just suspend the permit until such time as it's complete to the satisfaction of the town? And the permit only is for that, for stuff that goes into that detention pond.
Right, the one project.
Now, how are we gonna? Have any accountability for anyone if we don't hold them accountable after 8 years? I mean, it just seems. That this would be a prudent thing to do, that it's not gonna hold up. A lot of money for them, it's not gonna do anything except for make them respond. And get it done. As they said they were gonna do, and the manner in which they said they were gonna do it. I mean, I agree with you, Jimmy. I mean, like you said, it's at the end of the project. It's like, this was the beginning of the project, maybe, but. I mean, we don't have, and I'm going into the winter. Time short and the spring's on the other end, so if, you know. Their comment was that it was okay and worked okay for the past 2 years, but we had drought conditions in the past 2 years. So, I mean,
Apparently, they've acknowledged deficiencies on that latest.
we could get into a, again, hypothetical, get into a spring where we have one heck of a lot of snow runoff and rain. And that could cause a lot of problems, and we've let them go for 8 years doing it, and I think we need to tell them, look, we don't care what it costs, you need to get it done. You said you were gonna do it, get it done.
But you also have the death of the primary contractor developer. So
Sorry,
I said, you're also, the complication of having the death of the contractor.
Yeah.
His son is, is.
They're also-
Co-developer,
right, the contractor is supported by the developer. And the developer has it's the developer that has, whoever is in charge, that has the responsibility to make sure the contractor is performing as well. So if the contractor suddenly passes, the developer should have to take the bull by the horns and make sure that there's someone in there to get this thing done.
well, the developer was the contractor, that's,
Right.
that's the dead person.
Well, yes, but they had a lot of other people involved too, right?
Right, he's the face of it. So, do we know a third party? Would they be willing to hire a third party clerk of the works? Who's
Well, I think
who's
what
the
you do is
liaison
just,
between us and the developer?
Well, wait, before we get there. You know, the comment that our engineers or advisors, whatever you said, failed us. Their engineer and our engineer both agreed that it didn't meet the standard, but it came to 90-something%. So it wasn't like they failed us, they recognized it, said, this is the problem, and they asked if we would call it de minimis, and we said no, unanimously said no.
Mhm.
Then there was, the board asked of this board asked the Board of Selectmen to issue a cease and desist, and before we could even meet. They had an engineered solution that was being forwarded and reviewed by our engineer. Who are both familiar with the project, both agreed that it didn't meet the initial thing, and it's now being reviewed. When you say, it doesn't matter what it costs, they're paying both engineers. And they're both working as efficiently as they can. And I mean, before we could meet as a board, they had a solution and our engineer was looking at it. And now we're gonna issue a cease and desist.
We're just talking right now, we haven't.
No, you've asked us to issue it, and we're being questioned on it, okay? And
I've
we're
asked,
saying. Well, this whole board asked, and
Right.
I'm reporting on, okay? It does not make sense to issue a cease and desist at this point. When there's already been a solution proposed, and that solution is being reviewed. By an engineer. We all get the 8-year thing, we've repeated that like umpteen times, I'm as frustrated as you. I want to get the job done, not throw a wrench into the works. All right, we have a bond, it's been a poor process for 8 years. I want to get it done, I just want to get it done, I want to push this off my table.
OJ, I hear you, but there's no guarantee that,
There's no
people who
guarantee
are-
of anything.
there's no guarantee, well,
Okay,
wait a minute, look. When are we gonna hold people responsible and accountable for what they said they were gonna do? When do you do that? You keep talking about the 8 years, well, yeah, it is 8 years. And when are we gonna hold somebody responsible for and accountable for what they said they were gonna do, make them build it? And to have 2 engineers look at it and get to the final end of the project and say, uh-oh. It didn't meet 8% or whatever 8.5%, whatever it was of what it was supposed to be, is wrong. On any construction project, road project. The engineer of record is on the site every day checking to make sure that's done. He doesn't wait and say, oh, you didn't compact the grade, now you get to rip out the whole road. You know, they check and they look and they follow it through. If who we hire and who they hire wasn't doing that, then somebody failed to make sure that they should have done that. All right, that's not our responsibility to make sure that they're doing that. I suppose it should have been our engineer's responsibility to make sure that someone was checking it to make sure that it was done as designed. You don't just wait till the end of the project and say, oh, we've messed up, now we're gonna go back and now we're gonna fix it. That's the fox watching the hen house. Okay, so we can now have the engineer who did it, the town engineer, gonna fix something that they didn't catch in the first place. So my comfort level of having those two engineers do the fix, it's not as good as it probably should be. So that's why I suggested a third party. I don't care if DES, I want somebody to be looking out for the town's best interest. When this project is complete, that we are not gonna have. And when it's complete, it's gonna be complete differently than what was proposed. So now if something happens, we could be liable for saying, okay, you accepted that revision. And that didn't work, so here we are again. So to me, somebody needs to take a look at it and say, is this revision appropriate besides the guys who designed it? And the guy who looked at it for the town. We need somebody who's a neutral person, you know what? This will work. That's okay, that's fine. We can,
Okay.
the
Carol
people
wants
can
you
pay
to-
for that.
Carol wants you to check something here.
Okay, I believe that, the way it works is the engineer hired by the developer comes up with a plan. It's reviewed by our third party, our town engineer. So then the problem was that it was not installed according to the plan. Ray, our town engineer, is not involved until the engineer who was supposed to be overseeing it, and I think part of does the as-built. The as-built plans are then submitted to our engineer. Our engineer has said, look, the as-built plans are not what was supposed to happen. So, and there are also other things that interfere, so it's not like Horizons Engineering did not, just purposely did not review the building of the ponds. The Horizons Engineering probably did not get paid, which is probably why they have to be paid in order for them to keep an eye on the construction of the ponds. So anyway, they submitted the as-bills, and the as-bills did not meet it, but it was close, it was 90-something%. But you did not want that, and I totally understand why you did not that, you wanted what you had asked for to begin with. So, you're keep casting aspersions on the town engineer, and I don't think that you fully appreciate what the role of the town engineer is in this scenario. And you keep hammering on him, and it is not fair, and it's not okay.
Carol, that's your opinion. That's your opinion as staff. I'm telling you, I've worked with numerous engineers on numerous projects, whether it was Loon or whether it was installing roads or whether it was building buildings, it doesn't matter. You don't get to the end of a project and find out that it's only 90-something% complete, or that they used the wrong boiler, now they're gonna yank out the boiler, or that there was only an inch and a half of binder and it should have been 2 inches. You don't get there. That's why the town, and that's why we hire the engineers to look and tell us, because we don't supposedly have that knowledge. They're supposed to be looking through this whole process. And when and that's from start to finish. And I don't mean just looking through the process and saying, Horizons, you missed this, and after you submitted your as-built, what are we hiring a second party or a third party for if they're not watching to make sure that Horizons is doing it properly? Why are we even hiring that third party?
You'd be paying a lot more money if you were.
We're not paying, Carol, we're not paying for it.
That's not what we hired them to do.
Well,
Anyway,
then that's what we should be hiring them to do.
I'm just telling you that that's not how it works. That's-
I'm just telling you, that's what we should be hiring him to do. That's why we're still sitting here, guys. 8 years later, having these conversations. Make all the excuses you want, say you want to get it finished, but we're still here 8 years later, because of you. And,
Oh, good, Paul, thanks.
well, you're sitting here wanting to do it,
Who-
keep going around.
What other projects have we had a full-time clerk of the works that we, planning board mandated? Did we do it on the,
West Street,
not a town project?
Oh.
Well, did West Street come before this planning board?
No.
Okay, so we did not mandate it.
No.
Okay, the question is, what project? The
I want-
medical center, did massive drainage site work retention fund, did we do that? Full-time,
We-
clerk of the works?
we were supposed to be hiring somebody, and that was further my question. I didn't want to convolute this whole conversation,
No,
but
it's convoluted, because I
we're
I
doing,
mean, if we're gonna do.
we're,
if we're
if we're gonna do that, that's
If
fine.
we're gonna be yelled at, I want.
We're doing
this
one.
board.
Yeah, that's fine. We're doing one hell of a lot of construction in this town. We should be having somebody check that stuff out, because we don't have this in-house staff to be able to do it. That has the certifications to be able to do it. That's why on the first phase of the Riverwalk, I believe we hired a building inspector to go through every aspect of that
Well,
report to
the
the staff.
fire marshal's office, and that's what we did for the other hotels in the.
And I hope we're doing it with this new one. But we, when it comes to the building aspect, we want to make sure it's the same thing. But then when you're doing the dirt aspect or the drainage aspect, you want to be doing the same thing there as well. I mean, you can't, why hire somebody if they're gonna wait till the project gets to the end, OJ, and then find out that it's not right? Well, how does that make any sense?
What's our policy?
Well, that's a good question. Do we have one?
Well, that's a planning board issue. If that's gonna be a condition of approval, you gotta put it in the conditions that we require. That they hire a full-time engineer to be on-site clerk of the works from day one until.
We don't get a chance to look at that because I believe that the town's committee. And I think Carol's the one in charge of dispersing the monies that come from, come out of the escrow account. To be able to hire somebody. I'd like to change that because the RSA state says the planning board or their designee. I think it should go back to the planning board, and I think that might eliminate some of this stuff. I think the planning board should be the one that. And according to the RSA, it is the planning board or the designee now, whether Carol or the planner was designated by the planning board at some earlier date, I don't know. But I'd like to see it go back to the planning board, so that we could have an idea when stuff like this happens, because we don't, because it goes to the committee, whatever the town committee is, looks at it. And then they decide whether Ray or some other engineer looks at it, or whether it gets a further review. It's not the planning board that does that. We should be doing that.
So I mean, if some project is going forward, you could say, well, that, that's every stage of it, say you have to have someone sign off on it. As a condition.
It's usually what's done on a lot of construction projects. There's review that's done. There's daily, weekly reviews that are done, and the engineer of record goes to whoever the town hired and says, hey.
So we don't know if whether that was done or not, somebody could have missed something, right?
It's obvious they did. I don't think there's a could have. I mean, it's obvious that they did.
I don't think people are used to dealing with somebody like that guy. Most people,
mean,
that sounds
most
to
people
me
are on
more
top of
like-
that stuff.
I agree with Steve on this. I mean, are we gonna change our whole policy because of Mr. Elliott? And if we want to, let's let the board make that decision and say, okay, on every project, we're gonna put in the conditions of approval that this project needs X, Y, and Z for engineer oversight. And it can be daily, it can be weekly, it can be, as you said, at the end of each phase, divided into phases. But put it in the conditions of approval. We haven't done that since we were formed in 1986. We've never done that, but if we really need to do that, just because of Mr. Elliott, let the.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's just because of Mr. Elliott, but I think he's leading
What
the
other
charge.
case, what other cases?
I think he's leading the charge right now,
What
but
other cases we had? I mean, I've only been on the planning board.
I'm not talking-
Yes. So I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah,
20 years, this is the first time we've had a problem.
Okay, so it's been first one at least 20 years, and we're gonna change the policy because of that.
It's
If we want to, we can. I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying, let's put it in perspective of 20 years.
well, then let's do that. Let's put it in perspective and let's do that then. Let's ask the town engineer for recommendations. If we want to keep using the town engineer that we have. Let's ask him for recommendations, so we don't get into this mess anymore, okay?
I would agree with that.
Because I don't wanna sit here on another project, waiting 8 years and going, hey. I mean, and I don't want the spring to come around, I mean, and have. A long time local or 2 or 3 of them sitting here saying, look at what you guys did, you gave them an okay to do that, now it's not any better. Do you wanna sit there and have them do that? No, you
I'm
don't.
not giving them an okay, but let's, I mean, that's not a bad idea. What if every project, or at least major project, we stop and we ask Ray, because he sits on every
That's
major
fine.
project.
Yeah.
And say, Ray, what would be the best time frame or the best schedule to mandate a clerk of the works on this thing? And if he says, well, they should do it at this point, or if he says at least once a week for a project like that, whatever he says, let's put that in the conditions of approval. So then we're not blanketing and burdening every project with this, but we are doing it on a case-by-case basis on his recommendation. I'm for that.
chances of this happening again are slim to nothing.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, everybody, they're looking to get that pay at the end of the job, you know, they're not out there trying to.
Well, no, but I mean, look. We've got a lot going on in this town now,
Yeah,
and there's gonna be a
We're not
lot
arguing
more
about
going
that.
on.
Is,
You know, so-
is this a good idea? I mean, is that a good solution? I mean,
Well, that's why I proposed it,
okay, and I'm supporting it.
you know, but
Can we move
I
on?
just.
My question, I guess.
there's another piece to that too, because that's what I used to do, I worked for an engineering firm, they make me stand out there all day, because it's a lot cheaper than having them stand out there all day.
Well,
So
you're
you're
like
watching
clerk of the
dig
works.
and fill, dig and fill, dig and fill, drive yourself nuts.
Yeah. You're like clerk of the work, but it's your ass that's on the line. It's
Yeah,
not,
I send them pictures every day and.
yeah, you take the cuts and fills and, you look at the plan and you set up,
They tell you what they want. It's gonna be that
surveying
way.
equipment and you figure out if it's got the right footprint, it's got this, got that. I just don't think that waiting till the end of it is appropriate, and I think. Maybe this is a lesson well learned, but maybe that's the way to do it.
I also think it depends on the scope and complexity of the project. When we did the levy. Du Bois King was out there on either a daily or every other day basis, and the selectmen got reports with pictures, problems,
There you go.
everything. Okay, multiple times a week. When we did the Route 3 water line up by my house, which was before our selectmen, there wasn't a clerk of the works there on every day. I don't know what they did. Was it once a week, maybe? I
But
mean,
unfortunately, Audrey, what there needs to be is, there needs to be some accountability, someone that's held accountable. For making sure that the project is constructed as proposed, as designed. And as Steve said, I mean, as you said too, it's usually an engineer that works with the clerk of the works. But you have to be careful, because clerk of the works reports to the engineer of record for the developer or for the owner of the property. That's why the third party review comes in, and they go, well, wait a minute here, we want someone watching out to make sure that person A really knows what the hell they're doing. Well, person A on this job didn't know what the hell they were doing. So that's why we're sitting here discussing this. I think, I still think when you get to this point of it, and I still disagree with you, that I think that we should hold that their permanent, suspend their permit. I think when it comes to this amount of time, I think we have to take a stand and say, look, enough is enough. Stop. Fix it, then you can go make your money again. Then you can go build your buildings again. But if we just keep letting people do the building, then we're not focused on what the real thing is here. I mean, we've got the developer at South Peak. Who's
Let's stick.
I will, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. We need to make sure that when these big developments come in. That what they say they're gonna do, And that there's some accountability for it if they don't, because if there's no accountability for it, OJ. Then everything that we have in all of these rules and regulations, you know as well as I do, doesn't mean a thing.
Alright, well, we're gonna have to agree to disagree because. When the problem became evident. There was no dragging of the feet. They had a solution before the Board of Selectmen could even meet. And to throw a cease and desist is gonna go to court and we're gonna lose.
I'm not saying cease and desist. We just pull a permit. We can do that
That's
because
the same
they're not
thing.
compliant.
Alright, that's semantics. If we pull the permit and don't let them build. It's technically a cease and desist. We've already issued the permit. You just say we,
It's the same thing,
Anyway.
shut them down. I mean, but
anyway, I will bring your concerns to the board. But you know how I feel. And.
It's not gonna go anywhere, so you might as well not even bring it.
Okay, then that's fine too.
well,
You might as well not
Yes,
even bring it.
Exactly.
You already brought it to them. I'm just saying that, you know, you guys are part of the problem, not the solution.
Okay, well, thank you.
It's in motion, I guess. It's something I didn't know 2 weeks ago.
Well, what's been done for 2 weeks? What's been done in 2 weeks,
But they
you know?
spent some money on engineering.
Mhm.
I mean,
But
did
it's-
And
they,
then they've spent some more money on our engineer.
Yeah,
What's been done in 2
When
weeks?
did they
Just the
get the
engineering
result?
portion of it?
on September 14th, we said, no, we're not gonna rule it de minimis, or after we discussed issuing a cease and desist, you know?
could ask me for an update.
I guess we want to just let the board know we discussed it.
I will.
Any other questions?
So nothing's gonna happen with this. That's it. This board's not gonna act on this.
It's not our call.
Well, it is our call. You're wrong, Mr. Chairman, because it's our call whether or not we suspend the permit or remove the permit for non-compliance.
We can ask the board of selectmen, we technically don't issue permits.
Well, again, you're right. We do not issue the permit, the physical paperwork. We approve the permit,
Right, so you'd have to have a hearing that they're in violation of their site plan approval.
correct? I think we should have that hearing. We should invite them in.
Carol, did you, is anyone from, Forest Ridge aware that we're discussing this evening?
No, they're not.
Okay,
This,
that's okay, I mean, just asking.
and neither is the developer.
Why don't we discuss it further on the 9th?
Why don't we invite the developer in?
Get an update.
We can get an update, as Steve just said, at that point in time, find out really how far they are. Because winter's approaching, and if all we're gonna get is an answer of, well, hey, winter's coming, we're not gonna get it till spring.
Okay,
Here we go.
I mean, these guys are up to
We'll go up to 9 years now.
these guys, I mean,
There's no reason they can't.
these guys are up against the same manpower issues as everybody else is.
That's. And we don't even know what the fix is, and we don't even know if the fix is, they say it's gonna work. But who's gonna be responsible if it doesn't?
Well, I mean, we have the bonds, I guess. At some point, I
So
mean, I
what-
guess if they were to build out those duplexes and sell them,
Right,
we could invoke the bond and fix it. Because the bond is the whole cost of the project, I believe.
no, I don't think the bond was that much on that, was it?
I'll go get it.
There's two, there's a maintenance bond and a performance bond.
Right.
Or something.
I mean, because if they build the thing out and the bond is not very,
Okay, so
not enough to do what
maybe we
they,
need to ask the engineer, our engineer,
Yeah.
if that bond is enough to fix the deficiency.
Make that request.
Okay, this is a bond. New Jefferson Holdings. I don't know if you remember the whole tangled web up there.
Yeah.
New Jefferson Holdings has an off-site repair bond and an on-site road construction bond. The off-site repair bond is $10,000. And the on-site road construction bond is $100,000. The off-site, according to the notes here. Oh, I'm sorry, got them switched around.
Okay, that doesn't make any
10,000.
sense, all right.
10,000 is, on-site road construction bond for on-site road and utilities at the Pines at Forest Ridge.
Is that,
It is hereby agreed that the caption number bond is continued in force in the above amount for the period of the continued term stated above.
and what is the
which
term?
is
I
through October 1st of 2023.
Carol, just to interrupt. There was two double sets of bonds. That was for the project of the Pines. We had a bond for their roads, then we had a bond for them to fix the whole road that needed. Came correct to, that's the 100,000.
100,000.
Okay, then related to just the detention bonds, there were two more bonds. One was a maintenance bond, which was a longer term one because we wanted to see that it worked.
Right, that they maintained it,
They maintained it until the
You're
HOA
right.
took it over.
you're 100% right.
Okay, so that's still sitting there and it's not gonna be touched until
That's
the
the
HOA
main-
takes it over.
And then there was a
Then there was
performance,
a performance bond, which they got back when it was built.
in
We
operation.
had the as built, it was operating and it was signed off by the engineer.
How much was that? Do you
I
remember?
don't remember either of those amounts, but we have those two bonds are related specifically to the detention bonds.
Well, Jimmy's question is really relevant to make sure that that bond is enough to do whatever the fix is. Because of, and furthermore, that we might want to move that date out, whatever the date is.
Well, we don't, it stays in force until we have a hearing to release it, those bonds.
Well, I thought
That's the
Carol,
road, that's the road bond. This
right,
is-
but, okay, so the other bonds you're saying stay,
If my memory's right, it stays in effect until the board releases it, this board.
it's supposed to do that, but after hearing that one, I'm not sure. I just want to make, so we should make,
Jane just gave these to me tonight. She said, oh, I probably wanna, somebody's gonna ask about the bonds,
Yeah,
so she just handed these to me.
and, you know. It's a confusing situation. Okay, and I know Jane's on top of everything in this town, but that's pretty convoluted. The road bonds, of which there are two, are different than the detention pond bonds, which there's also two. So we have four bonds we're holding for that, for that.
When she read that, it didn't sound right. I remember
Yeah,
the
no, the maintenance and
Yeah.
the construction of
performance, yeah.
performance.
Yeah,
So-
I'll have to ask Karina, she's not back until.
so we need to make sure that. The bond is. Until it's released. And we need to find out what the amount of the bond is for the detention pond. And ask if it's enough to,
Get an estimate from Ray, how much he thinks it will cost to fix the deficiency.
Can we just ask if he thinks that the amount of the bond is
That's
sufficient?
fine.
I don't want him to
Yes.
go through and do a whole price.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
because we don't even know what. I mean, the fixes for the divisions. I don't know,
Well,
if it means they
here's
gotta rip it all down, do they just put a pipe in
We
the
don't know.
lower, do they?
But
When was
Ray has
dam
the
on top of
plans.
culvert? Finished the header, that culvert on
For some
the
reason, I
left
think
side.
that performance bond is substantial, because
Yeah,
there was
really do.
concern that they.
And there was the guardrail, there was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
erosion. I can't imagine that it's gonna be more than the bond, but I'd
Yeah.
rather get Ray to weigh in on that.
All right. Just put it down, we'll get an update of this on the next meeting on November 9th.
Are we gonna invite them in so we can find out, get an update on where they're at with it? Because I haven't been invited or apparently, and we've been talking about it for 2 weeks,
We
so.
can ask them, we probably can't compel them.
Well, I would think that we would. Say that we strongly suggest they come in and give us an update because we're considering. Suspending the permit unless, something that says, hey, look, this. You gotta get this done. Besides just saying, oh,
Get their
So at the
attention.
October 26th meeting, the board discussed the deficiencies of the pine with.
we didn't discuss it because we don't know what they are and what the remedy is.
But we had questions about the.
Deficiencies and whether or not further action needs to be taken, I don't know, something. Yeah, ask them on the 9th for an update.
I'm happy with that, get them in so they can speak for themselves
And they're welcome to join us by Zoom too. I mean,
Yeah.
and right, and if we want, we can have Ray and Horizons at the same time, maybe they can shed some light on what the fix is and how much it's gonna cost and whether or not they can do it between now and winter, between now and the onset of winter, or is it just, it's gonna be something that they have to wait until spring to do again?
Or just ask for a time frame.
I mean, that way we can get some real answers.
Does anyone else have any other questions on this?
So we're gonna ask them to come in,
All right, gonna ask them to come in.
we're gonna have Ray there and Horizons. And then them as the whoever the developer is now, I guess, do we know, is it the developer? Or is it, who is the developer, is it?
Well, I guess who is our contact person?
Still Elliot, right? The son,
With Jared Elliott.
Jared.
So will Jared have the necessary information, or I thought that, who was the other guy, Jaeger?
He's just a bank.
David Yeager is facilitating. But he's the bank.
And we just need somebody that makes the decisions.
I think we let them decide.
Who would, no,
Best speak for them.
that's all I'm asking is that we ask them that the representative be somebody who is. Because of the debt. The representative needs to be someone who is making the decisions now. Not someone that comes in here and says, oh, I don't know, I'll get a hold of this guy, or I'll get a hold of that guy. He died, we really don't know who's in charge now, we're still trying to figure that out.
Okay, so I assume that you also want me to invite, people in the Forest Ridge. Basically, it's 3 emails, I send it to. Howard or Harold,
I don't think we need to do that. I think we just need to get people that responsible for the repair. And see when it, get some facts here, because we have nothing. Not nothing, but we don't have a whole lot. They're invited, they can come.
I guess this is just an invitation. We're inviting
Right.
The
New
developer.
Jefferson, the developer, to come in and give us an update.
And their engineer.
Assuming, whoever can give us the information. We're inviting them to come to speak to us and give us an update. I don't see a problem with notifying the butters or homeowners associations.
Thing is, you never notify these 3 members of the public, or if someone else says, gee, I want to
It'll
speak.
be on our agenda.
Well, if the town notifies somebody, you gotta notify everybody. In fairness.
Then we'll notify nobody.
Right, because then you got, someone like Roger said, I didn't know you were gonna talk about that. There you
Again,
go.
it's just for us to listen.
Right.
Right, but
And I agree with you, Jay, invite only invite the people that are pertinent. I'm okay with that.
Okay, then if we do go forward with a official hearing on pulling their thing. That should probably be noticed.
yeah, that's.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So. All right,
We'll give them, so we can get this thing,
So we're gonna invite the developer on the 9th, just give us a status update.
the developer, Ray and Horizons.
Well, it's up to you.
Well, if the developer comes in here, I'm gonna tell you what, that developer comes in here, or their responsible party, and that person doesn't have any
we've agreed to that.
answers.
We're gonna invite the developer to come in here with whoever can give us information on this thing. And if Jarrett is fully up to speed with it. Okay, but it's gonna be Horizons. because
And we're
they're the
gonna
ones who
invite
know.
Ray as well, so that Ray can.
I think we
us.
should invite Ray once we
Yes.
get confirmation that they're gonna show up.
Yes,
I'm gonna pay him to say there's no one here.
okay, so. I agree.
I
with
mean,
that.
I just don't wanna be the ones inviting Horizon. It's up to the developer, and if they wanna bring their engineer, that's where I'm going.
It's up to them, because if,
I know, but we can't just,
no, I agree with you, and if Ray says, hey, look, this is what they're supposed to be doing, and. It can't be done by this time, or this is the problem, and we need, whatever it is, we then can decide whether we want to hold a public hearing to. to do something with a permit or not.
Okay.
At that point.
All right. All right, let's move on here. Work session. Continue to review sign ordinance to recommend changes to comply with applied read Tal versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona. We're on page 60.
We're on page what?
We're on page 63. Maybe we're a little further along. Than this here that I've written in. 64, I got notes.
You know, the things that are in yellow,
That's I didn't change anything. The things that are in yellow are the ones that were highlighted before. The stuff that is crossed out and in red.
So
Is the stuff that, the crossed out stuff in red is the stuff that we deleted and replaced with, okay, so look on page 83.
what page?
83,
83.
right,
Here we go.
okay, so we were gonna, the temporary signs, we were going to change it so that it was gonna come from the Warner. And so the new stuff is red underlined. Our stuff that we've decided to do away with is, I mean, it's just the computer program that does that. That puts a line through it and turns it red.
I see we dropped in there, those are the tables we talked about dropping in there.
So as easy as I thought.
What page you on?
83.
I was just trying to explain on page 83. I mean, it's very confusing because I highlighted all the stuff in yellow and I left the yellow highlighted in there from before. But if you look on 83, this is us subtracting our whole section on temporary signs. So it's the first half of the page as temporary signs, all with this line through it means we're deleting. And then we're replacing that with the temporary signs that is underlined and in red.
I say, can we start back at the beginning and just go through, because there's a couple of things that I either have questions with or small changes with.
So it looks like we've done, we'll just start. We've made changes.
The first change, I think, is on page 55.
How about 25?
Okay, that just said not content neutral, and we didn't really change anything.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest we cross out the two words. And identification. And just insert the word A.
Except
So
for
no
a
other
sign.
exterior indication of the home occupation except for a sign, which must comply with the Lincoln sign ordinance. It doesn't have to be an identification sign, it just has to be a sign,
Because it's right.
You're on 25?
page 25. That's content neutral,
And identification is what you're saying.
get rid of an identification
Yeah.
and just put A.
Oh, really, that worked.
Except for a sign. right? Says except for
Yes,
an identification,
yes.
so except for an identification, just put a letter A, except
Or a sign.
or a sign, okay.
Pressure on those.
All right, Carol, you set with that?
So the
Take
next,
out on page 25, paragraph 2, under section G. Remove an identification and replace it with the word A,
Mhm,
so it reads except for a sign.
mhm.
okay, so the next page was page 55, we made changes. Did
That was good, yeah.
anyone have any questions on 55? Paragraph E, go to changes.
So it should have.
Are we getting rid of E?
So no, the red is. The red is what we've added. Retweak that paragraph.
Okay, I would just get rid of the first parenthesis. This is or mandated parenthesis, and I think we should just get rid of that parenthesis there.
Sorry.
On E, I don't see a problem. Well,
You mean per site plan review?
Well, I would leave it or mandated per site plan review conditions, example in parentheses. They had an extra parentheses there. Or mandated, that little parenthesis, just get rid of that.
Yeah,
So the red is what's been added to tweak it.
Correct.
yes.
Mhm. Right, is everyone good with that paragraph?
Yep.
Yep.
Page 62. Traffic safety. That's one purpose. And then it says signs should be consistent with the goals of the master plan.
Good with that? Good with,
Second paragraph after that.
Yeah.
Sign standards, that's all new.
Yeah, and that comes from Warner's.
Yep.
Coordinates. You guys said something like that.
then there's no changes until we get down to B4. Definition of sign. I don't know why we took out any object. Or just, it could be a device, display, or structure. There needs to be a,
Well, I didn't take it out. It just, when it prints out, it's hard to read it. It's easy to read on the screen, but it's not easy to
Okay.
read here.
then can we just say a device? And
You
then
could
where it
leave
says,
any object there.
okay, we can leave any object there, but we should get rid of. Indoors, not use it,
Used to
used to
advertise.
advertise.
That's what we're proposing to get rid of.
That's what we should get rid of, that's not content neutral.
the content neutral means you have to,
Well, basically,
you have to read it to know that it's signed, right?
but in other words, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking under 4. It says by any means including words, letters, figures, design, symbols, so that all design, that is all content, it's not content neutral. It's describing content. Content is words, letters, numbers, figures.
It says including those things.
Should we not, but if we're striving to be content neutral, then we don't want to have any of that in there, right? It's
How are we
content.
gonna-
neutral.
how are we gonna- you need- this is a definition, that's not really a regulation.
Yeah, I know, I'm asking. It's supposed to be content neutral that we're after. Content neutral does not include things like words, letters, numbers, figures, designs, symbol. Because then you have to read it to understand what it is, and it then becomes content. Because
You
my
have a
question,
defined sign to begin with.
It's saying any or all of those things could be on a sign. It's not saying certain words, certain letters, certain numbers, certain graphics, okay?
I thought we had to stick with like sizes and quantities on signs, not what they said or
This doesn't,
how it was.
I think
That,
I think we're
we
getting.
talked
into-
about this.
I think we're getting into minutia here, but
Okay, no, okay, that's fine, pass it along, I don't care,
It looks good to me.
I'm just confused, this stuff to the rest of, I mean, not the rest of you guys, but. Content is. Find that thing again.
An indoor sign, that just means something that you can see through a window, like you put it inside. I get it.
so. What are we gonna make for changes to that paragraph? Signs. A device, display, or structure or part thereof situated outdoors or indoors. Used to advertise is gonna come out,
or you just advertise about, used to
okay,
identify, display, direct, or attract attention to an object, person, institution, organization, business, product, service, event, or location by any means, including these various things that it can or cannot include.
I'm good with that. Does anyone else have any questions on that paragraph?
No.
The next change is on page 63, and I'm using Carol's
Yeah.
version for the page number. B. Once a sign is approved, the message and images can be changed without further approval. So basically, once you have the sign, you can put whatever you want on it. That's what that's saying.
Yeah, the next
So
one there.
F and then 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 3, graphic details including colors, letter and style. To me, it doesn't make sense to ask for that in the application. Knowing that just above, we said, once a sign is approved, the message and images can be changed without further approval. So if we approve it today and they build it tomorrow, they can change it all the next day.
So still content neutral.
And they can,
So,
Okay, so here's the problem, like, we have so many signs. How am I gonna know that it's the right one? Is that the one we approved or not the one we approved? So basically, we're just approving the frame for the sign.
frame,
The outline.
the location, the height, the width,
square footage.
square footage,
Okay,
the lighting. All of that stuff. What it says on that sign is irrelevant, because they can change it tomorrow.
no, I know that, but.
Plus, they can paint it tomorrow too, so that's,
Right,
it says
so-
coloring, et
So a
cetera.
good example would be, I think that I've given, she doesn't own it anymore, she's sold it, the bakery. Okay, so I have given like no sign permits for any of those signs all over that building.
which bakery are you talking about?
Down at
In the
the-
mall here? Okay,
So she had 3 sign permits and, there's lots of sign permits there, so. Okay, so say I give her a permit for one of those signs that she's got on the wall. You can change it anytime she wants, so how am I gonna know which one it is?
I would think. The application. Once approved. Should be accompanied by a photograph, so you know which one goes with which. And the next time you go look, that sign should be in the same location, the same height, the same width, all of that, doesn't matter what it says.
Okay, but when she's applying for it,
But you won't have a picture because it's not there yet. So it would have to be done after it's installed. And maybe we would put that on the,
well, all the permits say that. I think only one person has ever sent me.
Why don't we just say a sketch of the sign or dimensions or something like that?
I think the problem becomes when there's, when there's,
It's already addressed in I actually, a detailed scale drawing. Of the proposed sign and its support system, including all dimensions, so.
All right, well, take it out and see what happens.
I mean, I honestly think that whether it's in or it's out. That they don't need to come and tell you that they're changing the sign. So long as it's, again, same height, same width, same location, all of that. So. If they do give graphic details of the sign. 6 years later, might be 6 signs later. And then you're still not gonna know. I think a photograph that says, okay, this is the bakery sign on the wall, this is the bakery sign in front, this is the bakery sign at the.
We can't refuse it based on what it says, just the
Right,
size and the location.
Right.
But if you have a picture, you have a pretty good idea that gee, it looks, you know, even though the wording and the color's different, you have an idea that it's the same location.
But if she comes in for a sign and she's got some that don't meet the criteria for the location or the size, then at that time Carol will tell her, you know, you need to tell us which ones are, you're gonna keep, which ones are gonna go. I would think that would be, you know, when you look at signs. Eventually, people who come in for, you're gonna be able to look at someone and say, look, your signs don't fall within the requirement of the sign ordinance. And you need to tell us which ones you're gonna take down as a result of that. Right? Isn't that part of the reason why we're doing this?
Yes. And I don't know what we have for records previously, but.
We don't need any records previously. It's like when somebody comes in for a site plan review, their whole site comes up underneath. When someone comes in for a sign ordinance or a building permit or something. You look at this, one of the things you do when you're inspecting their site is you look and say, okay, you've got X amount of signage here and it all complies with it, or it doesn't. So you've got 6 signs and 3 of them are too big. So you gotta take those signs down and make them the size that meets the requirement. And that way there we'll start getting everything back into a reasonable.
In theory, yes, the problem comes when someone changes out a sign.
Hmm.
Because they can change it every week or whatever. But then if they move it, if they make it higher,
Right.
if they
Take it
expand
whatever.
the square footage. Then it gets changed, but it's hard to tell, oh, is that a foot higher? No, is it? No, I mean, that becomes the mushy part. That would get caught when they come back in for a new sign permit, but if they don't come in, you know, the signs can grow.
Yeah, so yeah,
Is there a solution for that, that's 100% gonna work now?
oh, you're right. I mean,
Let's-
those,
I think if we take a picture of the sign,
we started doing that at one time.
Yeah, that's been an idea for a long time, like
well,
many years.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
someone
how do
actually
we
did
have
that,
to
not down
stop?
Main Street, I think it might have been the planner, what's his name, Mark. Who's
Matt
that?
Henry,
Matt Henry,
yeah, Mark was way long ago.
yeah. Matt Henry, he did.
requires staff.
It does. Now, is this something we can put on the sign permit application? Again, we can do this going forward. We can't do this for the last 40 years, but going forward, can we require them to send us a digital photograph of the sign and its location?
Well, think about how many businesses are here, I mean, if you did one a day. Just went to one business a day. Or even to one business a week. I don't care, I mean, that's still 52 businesses that you could just take a picture of what they got.
Going
50.
back, yes, going forward, what if we required them to send a digital picture?
we could require them, so it wouldn't require less staff, that would be fine too.
Is that feasible, Carol?
And this is what happens. Mr. Lincoln Sign. When we catch him, he says, you know, I said, you have not, I see a lot of your signs all over town, and I don't have any permits. I haven't issued you any permits for any of those signs. And he says, if you tell me which signs you haven't issued me a permit for, then I'll come in and apply. And that's who's hired by most people here. So, so I would say that we probably have issued a sign permit for maybe 18th of the number of signs that are up in the past 3 or 4 years.
So let's not let the chicken fox run the hen house, let's ask staff to do 1 a week. I mean, 52 businesses, that's a lot of businesses. So you could do the 52 every year. And if you had more time, you could do maybe a little more. I mean, I don't know how many businesses are in town, I'd be willing to bet there's not more than 100, you think?
So I mean,
If there's that,
let's move forward. I mean, let's.
well, I'm saying that we're trying to figure out a way. So that all of the stuff that we're doing is gonna work, Jim.
Right, I understand that, so just send a picture when the sign is done.
But you're gonna have to go out and see what they got now to help Carol out. To be able to say, so she can look in Lincoln Sign and say, that one, and that one don't have permits and they're in the wrong place or the wrong size.
Just make your rules and then hope for the day, maybe you have some enforcement. That's all you can do right now.
You have enforcement.
Weird.
The reason you don't have enforcement is because we don't have the ordinance that's. Right, that's why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Sure. But is it okay to take F3 out, leave it out?
Sure.
Okay.
I think, all right,
Good.
64 and 65, there aren't any changes. 66, quite a few changes. Exempt signs has been crossed out. Signs allowed but exempt from a sign permit and fees. The flags and insignia of federal, state, and local governments, and flags of historical significance. Residential identification house number not exceeding 2 square feet. And set a minimum 10 feet from a abutters property line. What's that?
That's temporary signs. The next one, certain temporary signs. Can you read that? The problem is the ink.
I'm on page 66 of the revised,
Okay,
5B. Signs allowed but exempt from a sign permit and fees.
Correct.
So then 5A, signs required or erected by government agencies. I guess I jumped down, excuse me. Signs promoting safety and or regulation or regulating or defining access to private property. Where the signs are less than 2 square feet in area. This includes, for example, signs such as those indicating whether or not someone could trespass, hunt, hike, bike, or snowmobile on private property. Flags and insignia of federal, state, and local government, and flags of historical significance. And D. Residential identification and house number not exceeding 2 feet, 2 square feet, and set a minimum of 10 feet from a abutter's property line. Certain temporary signs as indicated in the sign ordinance. And the lettering is a little bit off, we can fix that.
I couldn't, it
That's-
wouldn't fix,
it auto does it, yeah.
does it automatically and I couldn't.
That's fine,
That's
I'm gonna
fine.
fix that later. Signs indicating open, closed, sale of business hours located on premises and limited to 2 square feet in area. Incidental signs on site guiding traffic safety safely to parking spaces, loading spaces. Stacking lanes, entry and exit drives, direction of traffic flow and pedestrian ways on private property that not exceed 3 square feet and not exceed 6 square feet above ground. And that bear no advertising. Signs indicating the state or national register of historic places. status of a property, signs indicating a state of national register of
Well, it should say.
a state of national
or-
register of historical places, status of a property.
Should say state or. national.
Yeah, it's just something.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Rest 67. Prescott, does anyone have anything else on that? No? Prohibited sign crossed outs. C, and replaced it. Signs that may project over a public right of way. Or sidewalk unless the situation is such that the building to which the sign is attached is closer than 5 feet from the public way or sidewalk. In such situations, the sign shall be at an adequate height so as not to be interfering with pedestrians, vehicular traffic, snow removal. Tethered balloons. Signs attached to utility poles. Luminescent glow in the dark signs. Any sign in the residential zone unless permitted in this ordinance. It should probably say in a residential, we should probably have that defined because we have different kinds of zones.
Yeah, actually, that wording should match. The
Yeah, so
exact
general
rule-
residential, rural residential,
Exactly.
mountain residential,
So you want me to list the,
yeah, list those residential
Yeah.
zones. We've added I, any other sign not expressly permitted by the sign ordinance. And prohibited sign types. We didn't make any changes there.
Yeah, we should. That,
No, those are new, excuse me.
that B doesn't. Sign on a vehicle or trailer located for the purpose. Of, to advertise the business on site. So if you have your. Company vehicles at a site with advertisement on it, it's not.
Oh, that's, I think that's,
No,
I mean,
it's located for the purpose of advertising the business. Okay,
So,
that's
so,
prohibited.
Just an old box truck you leave in the yard.
well, I mean, that's right, we're trying to have, prohibit a box trailer with 4 flat tires.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that.
that's,
You could have,
right,
you could have your company pickup parked in front of your business and someone could say, wait a
and
minute.
just leave it there for months.
Yeah,
You
Okay,
could
okay,
have a
that's
trailer,
the
a trailer that you only use. Once
so
every,
you should say signs on an unregistered vehicle.
it could be a
No,
storage,
we had someone park in front of the high school and then someone else did it, and then someone else did it, and we said,
right,
we're gonna put this in there so we can enforce it.
I remembered that, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
if we're letting people put signs,
did you notice all the signs on the fence at the school?
yeah.
Yeah, but someone's given them permission over at the school. They're not just doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't give permission. But,
the
you
school
know,
didn't get permission.
We did,
I don't believe anyone did.
I was thinking about
they
that.
just did it.
it's a fundraiser. I mean, that's what, in my town where I live, that's a fundraiser. So they use that money to pay for, I don't know, extra equipment and uniforms and that kind of stuff. And I don't know what they're doing at the school, but that's what in Haverhill, that's what we do.
Only a green
Vehicle or a trailer.
Advertise the business on site, so that's. Kind of insinuates you park something on site,
So if Mike Donahue Jr. has a. Log truck up there on his site. Or a truck that he doesn't use very often and just parks up there, a skid that says Donahue Construction on it. Is that,
well, according to this, it's illegal, but
well, that's what I'm saying, I mean,
I mean,
that does it make sense to have this, and
this.
I agree with you, it does.
There's judgment, someone in the authority position has to judge whether that's a vehicle that's used in the business. It happens to be parked on site, or is it parked solely to advertise? Okay, if that vehicle is out on Main Street in front of the school,
Okay,
12 hours a day and doesn't move, it's pretty easy to tell what the purpose is.
so,
If Mike Donahue has a thing in the back on that road that no one goes on except for him and Mr. Sullivan. and he uses it, you know,
So let's
once a
put,
year,
I agree with you, so let's put,
okay,
so let's say located for the sole purpose of advertising. That way there, if they move it, or it has moved.
how about the
certain amount of time,
primary purpose?
Primary,
Now
so,
you're bringing the content, so
No,
you're not, you're just saying you can't use it for advertising, you're not saying what they can put on it. You're saying you can't use it for advertising.
so if I advertise my business, it's illegal, but if I put over Trump, it's not.
Doesn't matter.
how about if we say the sign on a vehicle or trailer located for the primary purpose of acting as a sign?
I think that's better,
Then it doesn't matter whether you put your business on it or vote, but
right?
well, political signs, if it's during that
Right,
political season, it's allowed, but. Primary purpose of. Acting as a sign,
because then it just says it can't be a sign.
yes. And it also doesn't matter whether it's on site or off site.
Right.
Which is a problem because the ones at the school are all off site.
So if someone wanted to sell their house and they put a sign on the vehicle, parked it on Main Street. Said, my house is for sale.
That would be against this rule. It would be acting, its primary purpose of being parked on Main Street.
Yard sale signs on a truck or a vehicle parked and yard sale so and so,
Primary purpose is it acting as a sign.
so that would be like,
Now, if they wanted to, they could come in and get a temporary sign permit, but they would need. A landowner to allow it. But there's other ways they can do it, but they can't just park their vehicle there with a big sign in the back of it.
Right.
Or on top of it, or,
What about two small magnetic signs if one on each door?
again, I think it's gonna.
but they're using it.
Judgment call, if they leave it there for 12 hours a day for 5 days in a row. I'd say they're advertising.
If you're talking about someone that takes, parks a vehicle and puts a big sheet up on it.
Or like he says, they put an A-frame in the back of their pickup,
Right, yeah,
okay,
base of the vehicle becomes part of the structure of the sign, not.
correct.
Right. Everyone good with that?
Yep.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
No other changes on 68. 69. So the only change is sign area. In all districts, one sign shall be allowed on a premise for each residence. One additional sign per premise shall be permitted in any district where there is an approved home occupation. Each sign shall have a maximum area of 3 square feet, shall be a maximum of 6 feet high, and may not be located within 10 feet of an abutter or public right of way. I believe that came right out of Lunar. Anyone have any issue with that?
No,
What's wrong with that? No.
but on. B3.
Yeah.
Last sentence, it says excluded from the sign count are,
Directional sign, or okay,
right, I think we should include, just to clarify what we're excluding. Is excluded from the sign count are exempt signs, such as directional signs, informational signs, banners and flags. So just.
I don't think banners and flags should be on there. I think those things are. People take advantage of those. We should put them on them, but, I mean, banners, you look around, you see banners and flags that just seem to pop up everywhere and. Maybe we should put either a quantity on them or just take them off there as.
Didn't we define those?
Cause those are hard to regulate, those things, people just put them up,
I'm trying to.
here they go, you know,
Yeah, and they're always in the sidewalk.
yeah, you walk up there, and you can, oh, whack.
Well, you know, that goes without saying, you can't obstruct it right away, you can't obstruct the sidewalk. No matter what it is.
Actually, banners are not exempt,
And
right? If you look at the exempt list. On page,
6.
It says that they are excluded from the sign count.
the incidental signs guide into safely parked loading spaces. Residential identification, so excluding directional signs. I would say excluded from the sign count are exempt signs such as directional signs, exempt signs as listed in section 5.
Yeah,
How's that?
just reference.
There you go.
Reference the
That's
whole
fine.
thing.
Because they're not exempt, right?
And what banners?
Right.
No, they're not exempt.
What page were you on when you read that, OJ?
69.
No, that's 69, where was it? Where it dealt with banners?
Oh, it's the exempt signs I was looking at that are on page 66. And banner flags are not on that exempt list.
Page 69B3. Changes on 70 or 71. Very well, your construction sign, directional sign. I don't think we've gone any further.
No, we didn't. Under removal of signs,
Yeah. how
Yeah,
come that-
I put the temporary sign on page 3, I put them. So we have a section on temporary signs.
yeah, temporary signs on page 83, but do you want to keep going in order?
Yeah.
On page 70. 9E, it says removal of signs.
Yeah.
Carol, do you show what that says in that paragraph?
Let's see if I can.
'Cause I don't
I'm
know.
going in my book.
Oh. I have a full version.
I know it's highlighted, I think.
Any property owner whose sign pertains to an abandoned or former use or business. No later than 6 months after discontinuation of that use or business. Shall remove the sign. At the property owner's expense or something like that.
Any property owner whose sign pertains to an abandoned or former use or business, later than 6 months after the discontinuance of that. Use or business shall remove the sign at the property owner's expense. I guess that's not content neutral. You have to read the sign to see if it said anything about the abandoned business.
Right.
But it deals with, but it's dealing with the location of it, isn't it? Saying that it's dealing with the fact that, I mean, I think
Well, I mean, if it otherwise complies with the ordinance, I mean, you're basically basing it on the content.
well, no, what you're basing it on is the fact that if a business goes away. If that sign is no, you're right, I mean, because the business goes away. And the sign meets the requirements of size and location, then it should be allowed to stay there,
Why?
because it's,
It's grandfathered. It's just- you don't.
it was allowed.
Yeah.
Someone else buys a business, they may want to change that, as long as it meets the requirement of size and location. Then they can put anything they want on. But if you take it away, then they're gonna, and time goes by, people might say. You never had a sign there, oh yeah, there was one, and then they maybe take it down. Even though it met the requirement.
Take its sign with you.
No, I think if it meets the requirement of size and location, you're not saying. Anything about the wording on it, you're just saying if it meets the requirement of size and location, that could stay.
Doesn't mean who.
Which means, that, removal of signs, that whole thing goes away, because they can keep it.
I would say take that out.
We either have to take it out or we have to change it so that it's not whether the sign pertains to an abandoned or former business. It's just that if the business ceases operating, the sign permit associated with that business discontinues after 6 months. In other
But do
words,
you care?
huh?
Do you care?
I guess you would if a business closed and they left the sign out front for a year or 2 years and
Well, yeah, you might want to say that, then after 2 years, if it's not resold or reused, then it has to come down or something like that, but I mean.
Maybe
Someone,
put-
if
maybe
someone
put-
buys
I would,
a business location. And then they gotta go back and put a sign up, it's got, I mean, if there's already one there, why make them take it down?
I agree.
I would say take down non-conforming signs.
That would be. Signs that don't meet the current regulations must come down, I would agree with that,
I think that's a better way to do it.
I would agree with that, signs that don't meet the current. Regulations must be removed. Period. That way there gives us something in sign order to say that all signs that don't meet the current regulations must be removed. And the current regulations are not content, they don't identify content, they just identify location, size. And stuff like that, so how about we do that?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
We have a lot of grandfathered signs.
Well, we could do that on a case, we could do that on a case by case business, a case by case basis.
Right, and if the grandfathered sign is on a business location and the business ceases to. They sell the property, the grandfathering goes away. And they have to remove that sign because it doesn't meet the requirements of the sign regulation.
Well, the grandfather stays with the property,
I don't think so, I think in the case of the sign, I think the sign,
Just like if you have a non.
if you're trying,
Go ahead.
if you're trying to clean up the signs. And you wanna be able to say, if you sell a business or the property. Then if there's non-conforming signs there, that they have to come down. If they don't meet the requirement of the sign ordinance, they have to come down.
If you had a non-conforming use, you could still sell the business, they wouldn't have to close, so.
That's true. Well, no, they would have to come in. The new owner, if they change the business, would have to come in and
If they change it, but if you have like,
if it's the same business,
If
Yeah, you're
it-
probably
if it's
right.
a different retail business, I mean, it's not a change in use if you go from. One retail business to another retail business or one. Even retail to consumer services, those are the same category
right, and if you went from a
business.
fried chicken restaurant to a seafood restaurant, you wouldn't.
Right.
You change the signs, but you wouldn't,
well. Right, I understand that, but if it's a non-conforming sign, according to the new regulation. And the property is sold, it should come down. Other than that,
I mean,
you're
it's
gonna
just
be able to
the
clean
same
up your
thing.
signs,
It's related to this, to the grandfathered use.
but you're never gonna be able to clean up your signs if you don't do that.
Like
You
Wayne's
gotta,
Market-
you'd like to clean up the sign.
Wayne's
right?
Market
You-
signs work for everybody.
You can't just go over the chainsaw and cut the ones that don't conform down, you gotta follow the law.
Well, right, and I'm saying, if they're grandfathered and are still in business, then you can't do anything about it, but at the point that they sell that business. Then that's when,
Yeah, but the business is still gonna be a going concern, even if it's sold. Right?
You sell
I
it,
would
it's
see it
still
that way.
grandfathered?
I mean, that's what I would say.
That's what I would say too.
That's what I would say.
Just like if there was a restaurant operating in a rural residential zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it gets sold,
and they have a sign that's not conforming,
okay. The use is non-conforming, the sign is non-conforming. But it's existed that
Yeah.
predates zoning. I think they're both grandfathered.
Yeah,
Tell somebody
yeah, how do you tell somebody, yeah, you're right, I mean, how do you tell somebody? You can keep your business, but you can't keep your sign.
And you never had any parking anyway, so that wouldn't matter.
The better way to do this is all non-conforming signs have to come down after a year, something to that effect.
Better give
Well, I
more than a
think you
year,
Made that effort back, remember when,
the town voted on it,
back in January of 2017 or something?
the town voted to all non-conforming signs, right?
Right,
Yeah, but
and we're
then,
talking about updating this town meeting,
But if it's already in as a vote of the town, we can't change that anyway, because. Especially if it's singled out like that.
Well, this paragraph is dealing with a sign in front of a closed business. And to me, the permit goes with the business. And we could say if the business stops operating, well, you can't say the next day, but you could say 12 months. And that gives someone a chance to sell the business, start a new business, do whatever. But if it goes more than 12 months, the sign has to come down, be removed.
Or meet compliance.
Well, what if it already complies, but it's just sitting in
and
front
I
of a
mean,
closed
I
business?
guess, it's hard enough to get a business started, why make them pull their signs down? They can reuse them, that's my thought. You know,
I know, but the whole thing here is
so you would make them take non-conforming signs down.
the whole thing is to make. Once you make this, it's a standard that the whole town has to adhere to. And the only way you're gonna get it done is to say that all non-conforming signs, per the vote of the town. Yeah, come down. And they have to conform to this, now,
We're talking about this one paragraph right now.
no, I understand, but it's removal of signs. All signs must come down if don't meet. The requirement of this sign ordinance, the new sign ordinance we're proposing. Because that's what the town voted on, it has nothing,
All right, we're trying to put something in for this paragraph right at the moment.
it's,
So, I mean, would
but
you
this
say-
deals with removal of signs, right?
It's
not
about
content neutral.
abandoned properties, abandoned businesses, I should say, on property.
Well, it's all crossed out, so I can't see that, all I can say is removal of
Any-
signs.
Can't even read that.
Any property owner whose sign pertains to an abandoned or former use or business later than 6 months after the discontinuance of that use or business shall remove the sign at the property owner's expense. You close the business, you have 6 months to remove the sign or reoccupy the space. And
So Carol's already crossed that up, why can't we just say that any sign that doesn't meet the current. Sign
we
ordinance,
didn't cross.
She didn't cross it out, she just highlighted it.
well, highway, whatever.
Yeah.
Why don't we say that any, because it was voted on at the town, and you had the town vote to stand on and say,
Well, no, you can't do away with the grandfathering.
well.
The subject of this is abandoned businesses. Do we want to make people remove a sign in front of an abandoned business after a certain period of time?
So then change number E. E to. Abandoned business.
Sure,
not
it says
removal of
that.
Signs,
Sign might help him sell it if he's trying to sell it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you want to bring everyone to compliance, I would say remove non-conforming signs, not all the signs. That would be my recommendation after the end.
for non-conforming signs that aren't grandfathered,
Let's just put non-conforming, and then if someone wants to make a case, they can.
how long does it have to be grandfathered?
I would say prior to the order, prior to the sign ordinance.
So then we should say prior to whatever that date is, prior to. So you have a
All
date,
non-conforming, non-grandfathered signs.
well, you should be able to find out when the sign ordinance was instituted, right, originally?
1986,
So say all signs prior to 1986.
all non-conforming
I
signs.
mean, I don't know how are you gonna know when it was put up? I mean, the whole thing is,
This sign intentionally looks funny.
sign, sign.
Good night, thank you for coming.
Folks.
These signs should have something on it, but what year it was also.
Okay, we replaced the old sign ordinance in 2008. Page 10, the whole ordinance. So we must have had something in place, but probably is not part of the land use plan ordinance, I'm guessing.
We've had a sign ordinance since 1986, and we updated it to this
Right.
one.
Okay, so then, was it always in this land use plan ordinance?
I think it was one time was a standalone ordinance, and we kind of,
And then you.
for simplicity,
incorporated it?
kind
There's a history buff.
what's that?
There's a history buff.
Yeah, we need Joe here, but
Welcome to 2022. You expect them all to read this before they get to town meeting or? They just,
Well, then they make it available at town hall to read and then,
yeah. It just says the planning board approves it. Most of them just go check off.
I agree with Jose, if you wanna make it just about abandoned businesses, then just. Remove the removal of signs to change that heading, put it more what it's directed to. If it's directed, if it's truly about removal of signs, then you get to deal with all signs.
I'm fine with changing the title.
What's that?
I said I'm fine with changing the title,
Yeah, change the title,
abandoned, I don't say abandoned,
change your property ownership.
no.
No, it's,
I don't,
I would
If I own the building and close the business. Leave it closed for
Yeah.
12 years with a sign out front that advertises a business that doesn't. Exist.
I mean, it's not really hurting anybody, so it's, I mean, I would say non-conforming signs, that way you can bring it,
Right, I mean, even if it doesn't conform, they can still have it because it's content neutral, so you can't tell them. And how do you prove that it's prior to 1986? They'd have to go back in the records and see
I
what their
guess-
business was.
The only way you can do it is just say, if your business is closed more than 12 months. Okay. You're not operating as business, you lose your sign permit, no matter what the sign said, you just lose your permit to have that. Sign in front of a closed business, you don't have to read the sign, you just look at the business, now it's closed, they don't have any sign.
How
you
about-
could change the wording though to.
Well,
political
you must
sign.
reapply for a current sign permit, which that would. Then they would have to bring it in, and grandfathering would go away that way, and then all signs would eventually come into.
I mean,
I almost think we should just cross it out,
cross out the whole thing,
yeah.
Get rid of E,
I would do that, just take the whole thing out and not worry about it. And eventually, everything will come into compliance as
read my
business
mind.
change.
I mean,
but you gotta give, I mean. You gotta have some teeth in this thing somewhere. No, I understand that, I understand that, but the removal of signs is where your teeth is about trying to get the signs that aren't in compliance.
what this paragraph is doing is saying if you close your business, you have to remove the sign. No matter what the sign says. Sign can have nothing, the sign could be a
Anything.
sign advertising some other place, you know?
Yeah.
You know, eat at so-and-so's restaurant, even though it's a mile away.
we have a bunch of those. We have the Woodstock Inn all over the place over here. Eat at the Woodstock Inn, stay at the Woodstock Station. Up by Jared's
Yeah,
garage.
yeah,
Right down here. Well, it was
Down
where
here.
so, yeah, this is.
the hotel is now.
But they're not in front of a closed business.
Well, any sign inactive for 12 months.
Well, the Longhorn sign where that one was,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
That would be,
grandfather.
well, that would come under here. Do we want them to rip down the Longhorn sign after 6 months of being closed?
Not really bothering anybody.
Well,
Doesn't bother me, I go by it every day.
Oh,
Well, and I think that might be part of the charm. The person who now owns that building might be looking for it to restore the
Yeah,
1950s ambiance of the town.
Well, that's the name of the building, it's a Longhorn, so it's not. That's really, they're advertising the name of their building.
That's true.
You know, in the UK, everyone names their house.
Well, I say we just remove that paragraph.
that's
I
fine.
agree.
there you
I'm
go.
okay with that, I don't care,
Sounds good.
seems like a lot of discussion. or something.
Oh, no, it's, you know, it's not, we're gonna have a discussion, or we're not gonna get anything done. All right, so it's 20 of 8, how much further you guys wanna go?
Well, my paint's not dry here yet. Yeah, like watching paint dry, you know.
Let's get through this section of. Sign types.
Definitions,
Yeah,
so let's do sign classifications.
So, yeah, when we go to 73. That's the end of what?
Construction sign, not content neutral.
yeah, the first three signs look fine to me. Archway, awning, changeable copy,
Right.
all right,
Construction
Construction
signs, and I think directional signs are in that temporary
Right,
or that exempt. Or you don't, that section, that weird thing, you don't have to apply. Where is it?
it's, I believe that's.
Signs allowed but exempt from a sign permit or fees, so. Somewhere in that directional signs about,
So,
maybe I'm just imagining.
underneath change coffee sign. 70. Signs with letters which must be manually moved in order to change the message or wording of the sign. If the letters.
Okay, on page 84 and 85, Carol, is that chart where it talks about,
84 and 85, wait a minute.
wait, I thought that's where it talked about
Temporary,
construction signs.
somewhere is that.
Next,
Yeah, on page 84, an additional sign when there is a construction project or maintenance.
oh, okay,
They have,
Yeah.
they can put up 4 signs, 4 square feet. The maximum duration is from the issuing of the land use authorization permit to completion. Or during maintenance.
okay, so construction sign, they're covered under temporary signs,
Yeah,
so we can take out that section.
perfect.
Take out,
D,
D in its entirety.
On page 71.
and I believe we've covered directional signs.
I believe we did.
I think it's in there.
It's in 5, on page 84, 5B. Temporary signs which are allowed. B is directional signs. So we can cross that out in its
Where
entirety.
are you again?
Page 83. 5B. In order
how do
to
we get to 83? We're on 71.
Because we want to cross out on 71 directional signs,
Right,
because on page 83, 5B, it addresses directional signs.
You only have that as a temporary sign. So this is something, temporary signs which are allowed. That's at
Okay,
5B.
then it's addressed in
It's addressed elsewhere, I know I've seen it.
the exempt signs.
Signs which-
Incidental signs on-site guiding traffic, safety to parking spaces, loading spaces, stacking lanes, entry and exit drives, traffic, blah, 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 blah.
Signs
Don't
allowed,
need, don't need a. sign
partridge
there.
in a pear tree.
So that would take care of directional signs
Where is
that are
that one?
permanent.
page 66, signs allowed but exempt from a sign permit and fees.
And it's down at the bottom where they miss
Okay,
numbered,
yes, yeah,
the second, it's the second C.
yeah, okay, I see.
So I say we totally remove directional signs.
Remove it.
All right,
Yeah,
now we're on page 72.
73.
Let's see,
72. On electronic message boards, the last sentence says the intent is to allow gas prices of movie titles. Let's just get rid of that whole sentence.
Good idea.
They can have an LED sign, static display only, it doesn't matter what they put on it. Is that good?
that's fine,
I agree.
and we actually put that in there so they could have LEDs at the gas stations down the street.
Right.
So. You're saying get rid of what?
Just get rid of the sentence, the very last sentence, it says the intent is to allow gas prices of movie titles.
Mhm.
Just get rid of that sentence.
All right.
All right, under flags.
Actually, I had one question for you.
Yeah.
So if it's a changeable copy sign. You have to, in order for it to be content neutral. Doesn't. you would have to see it changing copies to know that it's a changeable copy sign. Does that make it content neutral?
No, no. If we said you can have a changeable copy sign, as long as you didn't put up Bible verses, that would not be content neutral.
Right,
If you said you have changeable copy sign. Okay.
that's okay.
The fact that you need to see it change or not change isn't based on the
That
content.
doesn't make it identify it as a
You
sign.
can look at. You said content neutral, you didn't say sign.
Right. Well,
This,
I meant
this refers to gas prices, movie titles. As
as,
the intent, there is no intent. So
Alright.
cross that out and just say, you can have an LED sign, it's gotta be static. It can be changed periodically, but not in a way to simulate any movement or display multiple messages.
I'm all right with it.
All right, under flags,
I was looking for.
Non-governmental flags,
period. Oh, sorry, not period, but get rid of that have symbols, emblems, logo, You said non-government flags
Period.
are limited to one per business. The maximum size must not exceed 15 square feet. That's content neutral. So we're eliminating the words
Symbols, emblems,
that have
logos,
symbols, emblems, logos, yep,
words such as.
et cetera.
8 square feet, that seems like an awful large.
3 by 5.
So let's move
No,
on.
I guess it's
So how big do you want it?
No, it's fine how it is.
Okay.
I just, for some reason, I think it was larger than it really was. Alright, so non-governmental flags are limited to one per business.
And then the maximum size.
Right.
Not exceed 15 square feet.
It's fine.
Right. On freestanding signs. 2B,
Yeah,
where it says the sign must advertise a parent company.
yep, cross that all out. That whole sentence, just cross that out, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. One more page.
Page 72, so the rest, good with the rest of that.
I am,
Home occupation sign,
okay,
I think we've dealt with that where every house gets one sign.
Yeah, I think
And you get an extra sign if you have a home-based business.
could be in the temporary signs or the permanent,
No, it's
we don't need the permit, so.
one of the very first things I think we did.
Just gotta find it.
Right, page 25. Oh,
Yeah, I think on page 73. Under. It's the last paragraph description, that has a lot of stuff in it, that's. Any sign used to inform the public about business operation, informational signs, including not limited to hours of operation, open, closed, vacant, credit card, telephone.
well, let's go back to
That's-
the home, let's go back up to the, we haven't finished the home.
Oh, I'm
occupation.
sorry, I thought you were.
Can we change home occupation sign to say any sign located at a private residence, cross out advertising, and insert that is also used as a home business.
Okay,
So it's referring to the use of the property, not what the sign says. So if the use of, then under standards, if the use of the property is a home occupation, it's allowed one freestanding sign per household with a maximum sign area of 9 square feet, blah, blah, blah. Leave it all the same.
so it is on page 69 on the sign area. Third paragraph. In all districts, one sign
Say that again?
on page 69, this is on your copy.
Oh, okay.
Underneath what, Jim? Number of
Oh,
signs,
yeah, that's already taken care of then, isn't it?
Yeah. Mhm.
Then we can cross that completely out.
So just,
the home occupation one,
Yeah, it's covered on page 69 under sign area.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
that section.
Yeah. the last section, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm wondering if we take that. Paragraph on page 69. And put that under home occupation sign. I mean, if you're looking for a home occupation sign, you're gonna have to
Right,
dig under sign area to find that there's an allowance for it. Can we just put that under?
Yeah. maybe
Well, when you
find
hit
it.
sign area, can you do sign area / home occupation sign? So it just change the heading. That way there, it shows you trying to include it into the description.
I guess you could do it either way. I'm thinking of, we already have it in the ordinance. If we put it under,
to just take it out from page 69 and drop it on page 73.
right. So we would still use the description. A sign located in private that is also used as a business, as a home business.
and then under standards and include that paragraph on page
Paragraph
69.
Standards for the home occupation sign.
So we're not gonna have third paragraph on the sign area at all. We're gonna make it,
Correct.
that's fine.
Also remove that in the sign area and leave it underneath the standard for home occupation.
Great. Is everyone good with that?
Mhm.
So next paragraph just deals with the industrial park, but I mean, couldn't we just use the regular?
Industrial
State-
building sign, not industrial park. But it also, when you look at the last paragraph underneath that, it gives you, it has a lot of content.
Right, but if you look at
I do
First
that whole
pa-
paragraph.
industrial building sign, it refers to the industrial park. Oh, no,
No, it doesn't.
Well,
First-
that's
first
all
of all,
there is, and it's the only thing in the small business district. Right,
True.
it's the industrial park,
right, so yeah, just,
that's it.
But the description has a lot of content. A ton.
I would suggest changing industrial to business park. Business park building sign. I think A is okay. I think B,
but
It's fine.
excuse me, don't you have standards when someone like your own covenants that deal with that land? As far as signs? Do
there's
we-
covenants, I don't know if the signage included in the covenants.
Okay.
Okay,
just-
now, back up a minute, what were you you're gonna rename industrial building sign to?
Building business park.
Industrial business park sign.
I get rid of the word industrial, we've termed that as a business park,
Small business.
Okay. Business park sign,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think A is fine. It's content neutral, as far as I can say.
Right,
I think B,
he's fine.
well, it talks about listing various businesses located at the entrance of the business park. If we just said a single freestanding sign located at the entrance to the business park will be allowed under B. And then add to letter C, the total area of the sign is to be equally divided among the occupants of the business park. It doesn't say they have to list their business name, it just says they get the divisional share of the 32 square feet. So if there's 8 businesses, 32 square feet, they get 4 square feet.
So you can,
2 by
yeah,
2.
so A single.
That's not a very big sign.
No, but you wouldn't have, I wouldn't think you'd have 2 by 2, you'd have,
10 by 5 or something.
yeah,
like
you'd have less than a foot
that. Yeah.
by whatever length it equals, and you'd
Yeah.
have them all stacked up. If I were gonna design.
Plaza, they got
Yeah.
all those little signs
All
up
those little
there.
signs, yeah.
It worked.
Does that make sense?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, so Carol,
I don't know that I got the wording.
okay, B,
Yeah, I got the single,
freestanding sign located at the entrance to the business park will be allowed. And then C, we'll talk about 32 square feet. Leave it as is, but at the end, add on. The total area of the sign is to be equally divided among the occupants of the business park.
okay, I just need to come, I gotta write this down, but I'm gonna, so what's happened over here with the, Lincoln Center North was that originally that was the plan for that big sign out front, the freestanding sign. But then they ended up with 1 or 2 additional tenants that then were squeezed out of that sign. So that's how come we had this ongoing battle with the people who put their junky, they're not supposed to, but I found out that they do. I don't see it because I come early and be late, but they put those junky 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers parked out front, but they're not supposed, they've been told, I don't know how many.
They haven't advertised on them,
Um,
because it meets the requirement, what we just talked about with trailers and stuff like that, right?
they were using it as advertising.
It didn't even have a motor.
No, I mean, it doesn't have
Yeah,
any-
you're right.
So the same thing happened with the village shops. So everybody got their sign and then there was no room to put the new tenants in. So that's how come the Moon, as she calls the bakery, she hung that sign off the side. Now, she didn't have permission to hang it off the side like that. She just did it. And so I'm not sure that that means, okay, so say you start out with 5 tenants in the business park. And so the 5 tenants very nicely have their 1/5 of the sign. But then you have 2 more people come along. And then are they out of luck or? just
Sign, they get,
1/5.
they each can have 1/5 while there's 5 businesses, but then number 6 and 7 come in, now they each get 1/7.
Right,
So they either need to plan ahead, saying, okay, the most that can be is 10, we each get a 10th.
that's what
Or
I,
they can say, there's only 2 there right now, they can each have half of it. But the day number 3 moves in, they gotta take
Yeah,
this
you're not
time
gonna-
down. and
yeah,
add
how you
the
gonna
third
keep
guy.
track of that?
Yeah, I think it's better off just to divide it up now.
Yeah, I
Oh,
agree,
I do too, but
I agree.
Especially this year, you're
again,
at least.
again, if the content neutral, and they give a 32 square foot sign. Those first 2 guys can take.
Yeah, I know, but I think like,
Oh, I agree, you shouldn't do it,
yeah, because
but can we
you,
control it? They have the right to put up a 32 square foot sign, we say, well,
no, they don't, if you say you're only allowed 1/10, if there's 10 lots, you're only allowed 1/10. Just say that. That way they can't put the 32 square foot sign up, they can just put 1/10.
I said, so instead of divided among the occupants of the business park, divided equally
Equally.
among the lots.
Right,
To be equally divided among the lots. Of the business park, that's what I do.
yeah, and that way there, it's just, it removes all,
And, you know, Carol, like your. Question or point is valid there, it doesn't have to do with the business park, but it has to do with other multi-tenanted things and. Kind of late now, but. When we're doing a site plan for a multi-tenant building. Any sign should be
Be divided
mandated to be equally, or not even equally divided, but that
Okay, so you have to remember that, because the last 2 or 3 times when we
I
had.
think
site
that's
plan
equally,
review,
just like we
you
did
have
here.
not wanted to consider the signage. Okay, so
Well,
you just said, we'll take care of that later, you just go in and see Carol and she'll give you a sign permit.
Well, maybe we have to rethink that, but we should put something in the ordinance that gives us the right to look at that. Like,
Yeah.
Well, you already have it in the site plan review regulations. You already have the right. to
Yeah,
review
signage is underneath one of the,
Part of it, it's part
or
of
the
it.
checklist.
I mean, I think the space on the sign is really negotiated between the landlord and tenant, not town.
Well, no, it's not, because what happens is. What Carol just said,
I
someone gets
understand, but
mixed up and then they come in and add them, do you wanna take them away even though they're a tenant? No, what you wanna tell them is, you can have this square footage,
The landlord shouldn't have given away their space, is how I would answer that.
well, what I
okay,
would
but
say,
once they do, it becomes a town problem.
right, but. Look, I mean, you know, you just gotta tell them,
Do they do
this is what you got for square space and you need to divide it equally amongst your tenants, period. Because that way there, everybody gets the same space and no one's treated any differently and.
Well, what if I'm the anchor tenant, I want more space?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, the movie theater
One Love Brewery.
has the big chunk of the big sign down here. Is that justifiable? I mean, they take up a huge amount of square footage. Okay, as opposed to, I don't know, the post office or what's
But
the
they
small.
don't seem all scratching and clawing to get any more square footage on that sign. See, whatever agreement they have seems to work.
No.
No.
As a tenant, previous tenant there,
Okay,
that's not the way it worked,
okay.
okay? There was much dissension and then creativity as far as advertising, like with ATVs parked out on the road that says ride me or rent me or whatever it said, okay? Because they weren't sharing space on that sign.
And they should. It should be made to share the space, so
Well,
everybody
when it
gets
first
treated.
started 10 years ago, remember they came in. And they were going to have a whole brand new sign, they were gonna,
Right,
and we approved the sign, and it was
same
a
time.
freestanding sign, but it's gonna be,
Didn't play.
you know, much sexier and anyway, and then it just didn't happen, so. I can't remember too much about it, I just remember it was.
But it should be that, you know, to keep things. The same. I truly think just like a small business park, I think,
Well, I mean, this is something we have control, it's town property, so.
no, but we have control over. Things in our town property too, by virtue of the ordinance. You can
I
say,
mean, we're allowing a freestanding sign in so many square feet, so I think it's part of the landlord and the tenants, they should give it out amongst themselves. Or work it out amongst themselves how they give it out.
but they don't, because then
Well, that's
someone
their
gets less out.
And we can't be all things to all people.
You gotta be fair to all people.
They don't wanna be fair, they won't rent their property.
Well, I suppose that's true, but
If
they,
you go into a place like that, if you couldn't get a space on the sign, it's well.
so let me ask you conversely, so if. Carol's. Point about someone putting a sign up someplace where it shouldn't have been. Are you gonna go tell her that you gotta take that down? She's gonna go, but I can't advertise. Well, go see your landlord. Is that what you're gonna say?
You know, you open up a business, you should do your due diligence as to what's allowed, and what's not allowed, right?
I don't know. I
I
think,
mean, you wouldn't lease the space before you knew a restaurant was allowed.
I don't know. I think you gotta give these people a leg to stand on.
Well, we're not at that stage yet anyway, we're at the industrial building sign.
Kel, can you
I
put a
think
note?
we could wrap it up on, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to say this is harder work than.
It's. And again, this is why I love that we're gonna get someone to look at our ordinance as far as,
After.
no, as far as the, workforce housing
Oh,
issue. I mean, this is pretty straightforward compared to the wishy-washiness of the ordinances related to workforce housing. I mean, I can go through and say, is this content neutral or not? I can't go through and say, you know, what can I change here to make workforce housing but not allow other master. Anyway, I'm glad we,
so underneath that last thing, the description, what do you wanna do with all that?
well,
Informational
I-
sign,
I mean, but it's,
so I mean, we've already covered that kind of.
it gives you, it tells you the words closed, vacancy, credit card, I mean, it tells you that, so. You have to read it to know it says that, it's not
Well,
content.
we've already
no,
discussed.
if we add that to 5B of the exempt signs.
They go read the bathrooms.
But this is content, this is all content. Closed,
Right, and
operate,
saying that
open,
those
closed,
those are
vacancy.
exempt from a sign permit according to 5B.
So we don't really need it here.
Well,
Well, what if I try and do my best to
that's what I would say.
merge this one with,
The description,
yeah, the
With
66,
5B.
with 5B166.
The second 5B, signs indicating open, closed, sale of business
Right.
hours located on premise and limited to 2 square feet area.
on what page, Carol?
66. So I'm gonna
66.
merge 73, the informational sign with on page 66, signs allowed but exempt from sign permit and fees. And I'm going to smush it in as best I can with, where is it now?
5B and it's
5B,
the second B.
second B. Signs,
And I think that's a
But
good,
that, but those are safety signs,
well, except for I could give it its own little paragraph.
right, those are safety signs.
But I think these are good things. These are the good kind of signs that you want to be allowed, exempt from permits and fees. I mean, those are things that a business needs. But
They also display a lot of content, so, on page 73.
they do.
right. But
And we're
not gonna
saying they're
issue a
exempt
permit.
from the sign permit, so we're not
We don't
judging the
have to do that.
content of whether we issue a sign permit or not, because they're exempt.
You don't have to judge it.
They don't need a sign permit.
So that's fine, I was just gonna say, yeah. You put something in there that says that it's
So put 5B.
lack of content,
Well, I'll just make another paragraph, and essentially use this stuff.
Yeah.
That would
Fit it
work.
in. And if you don't like it, at the next meeting, you could say,
yeah, put it in a different color so we can look at it.
We'll, maybe
I mean,
all the things that we just, I guess
No, we're fine.
I'm just thinking, we want to not highlight the things we approved tonight, we looked at, and we said.
Right, I would say after 73, we're done, except for, you know, and then we just.
Except for the changes, you're gonna go back and make it 5B.
Right, 5G. Well, so a few other changes were made, but. She can put those in and up to 73, I think we're done, then we just gotta go from 75 to 101, and
Yeah, so
not much on a lot of this other stuff, so.
And Kel, if you want to make a note
we're
whoever
finishing up, Stevie.
multi-business signs are in here, you might want to highlight that and ask us to address it, not only related to the Supreme Court decision, but to divide, how it gets divided up. So we can have
Progress.
that discussion at the next time.
We'll get there.
All right, so we're good to page 75.
So what are we doing for that last informational sign? We're gonna use that definition.
and we're gonna put it with signs allowed but exempt from a sign permit and fees, which is on.
Direct, all right, so we're just gonna take it out, and just put it in there.
Right.
And merge it with what's there.
Okay. First two paragraphs on page 75, so that we're at an internally illuminated sign for a start.
So that's what we're gonna let, we left off.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
Any other business?
Yes.
yeah, related to the next meeting,
We have two, maybe three applications that I just got today.
Yeah, I didn't get that email, just resend that, because I didn't fit.
What?
My box was full.
You're talking about
the request we got that we,
Oh, the Dropbox thing, Karina's supposed
no,
to.
no, no, the
No.
Jane's request that we meet with the neighbor.
Yeah, well, you notified everybody, so I'm okay there.
Gene.
I'm lost.
Oh, yeah, no, that'll be on the agenda for next week, and I copied Mr. Berglund on my thing.
Did he request it?
No, Jane did, Jane did.
Okay.
Nothing has happened,
Huh?
nothing has happened. Remember, he was gonna come back once he had some kind of solution or, he was gonna talk to us about it.
What he said, I believe what he said was he was going to work it out with Jane and Steve.
And we said we'd discuss it after Labor Day.
Right, and, but nothing has happened. And so, we're hoping that his knowing that it's on the schedule for discussion or an update or status. That he would
Make the move.
in some direction.
All right,
Good luck.
I guess my thought would be that the planning board, or that you just invite him to, update the planning board, whether he
Well,
wants
that's
to do
fine.
that as an agenda item or an email. I just don't know if one party can tell the other party that she wants them to come before the planning board when it's really not related to a planning board decision. I mean, there was never any application or permit or anything like.
Update, right?
Well, no, there was a permit issued for his work. And for his original work, so that permit is what's,
But it didn't come before the planning board, wasn't
the
the land.
permit did, I believe.
You know, but it's related to stormwater management, that's how it ended up here in the first.
Right,
The stormwater management,
it was a stormwater management issue. That's what brought it before the board, I believe.
it's not a traditional. And you're right, it's not, it didn't come before us in a traditional.
Did it trigger a stormwater management plan?
Oh, yeah.
No.
It should have, and I don't think it did. That's what,
Well, this
it should have, and I don't think it did, I think that's the reason that the planning board, it came back to the planning board because I think that it wasn't,
I'd have to look at the minutes.
Yeah. I think you'll find that it should have, but it didn't.
I guess I would just. Want to be careful about mandating someone to come here as opposed to inviting them to update us. I think there's a difference.
Invite him up there, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, we can't compel them.
We can compel them to meet the stormwater
Right, well, it's.
regulation. But that's
Right.
after we talked to him. He was very, he was very, said he was gonna make.
Yeah, that's,
He just didn't do it.
that's why I prefer the update. With
You always
someone
go,
who's been-
you always go that route.
Well, to someone who's,
You know, if you go to.
You take the sugar, I take the vinegar.
let's hold hands and cooperate until it falls apart. As opposed to mandate someone comes here,
I'm fine with that.
all right,
I'll be some tired in 10 years.
Carol, can you resend me that? What were the other things that were coming?
Yeah, I keep getting stuff picked up.
that was the only thing that was in the email,
I just sent it this evening.
right, with,
It's barely got the.
that.
All right,
It's just that's heads up.
anyone have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Hey,
yeah, exactly,
Hey, you made it through some of it. Look,
yeah, we made good progress tonight.
it's not March yet.